Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, Comrade Godlimpi and Comrade Mtumiseni. We are in the National Executive Committee that post the elections. One of its key items is on the reflection of the elections and post the elections, what has actually unfolded. We're quite delighted because we presented before the NEC a scientific analysis of what happened and informed by what we understood going into elections. And then we also shared information about the visits that we have embarked upon as the National Executive Committee's elections task team to different provinces as mandated by the National Elections Team, the NET of the NEC. We shared the feedback that comes from structures. We shared also the feedback that comes from the work that we have had with the IEC. And most importantly also, we brought in an external contribution that came from MISTRA in terms of their understanding of what has happened going into elections and what happened post-elections and how we move forward. We all of us have embraced and agreed that this indeed was a setback for the ANC. Our fortunes were not as we had expected, but we appreciate those millions that still had confidence in the ANC and voted for the African National Congress. The second thing, we took note that the majority of the registered voters didn't necessarily come out and vote. Part of our way forward is to identify the location of those that had not turned out to vote, because we can't conclude that they would have not voted for the ANC or they would have voted for the ANC. The fourth thing that we have also have presented before the National Executive Committee is the work that needs to be done, particularly at local government level, because these elections were also issue-based and most importantly based on what are the dynamics where people live. And lastly, that we need to ensure that our character of being a leader of society is that we have earned. And we need to make sure that we go back and continue to earn that status by working in communities, not only for elections, work and operate within a voting district for the whole 5 years prior to elections, so that we become connected with the people, with the challenges and without the challenges. Sectoral work, we have also reflected on that, particularly informed by the youth voter turnout, dealing with those issues that affected young people, primarily the issue of unemployment, the issues around NSFAS that also affected young people, issues around social ills that also affect younger people, were issues that we really also reflected on. We humbly appreciate the work that has been done by our selfless volunteers, especially those that are not MPs, those that are not MPLs, those that are not ministers or MECs, who continue to work hard and service members of the communities and be available as and when elections are taking place and the campaign is unfolding. And finally, the issue of accountability that was in our manifesto for the first time, we have also put that as one of the very important areas of focus for the ANC going forward. West now under the government of national unity, we need to make sure that everybody is held accountable, everybody is being given the support, but the strength and capacity of the ANC has to be also enhanced. We will work tirelessly on the coming by-elections and treat by-elections as, again, a build-up towards any other election that is unfolding in South Africa. We will also have to skill our own party liaison officers, so that then we are able to complement the weaknesses that exist in some of the independent institutions, but also helping our members to understand and deal with voter education, something that we all know that regional ballot, that also was a challenge. So investing on voter education is also quite important. Post this NEC, the NEC will brief the South Africans, but we are also going to be going to our own regions to go and interact on the GNU, but also to go and strengthen, and where needs be, to reconstitute our elections machinery, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng.
There you have it, folks. Okay, I see News 24. There you have it.
That closing down.
I see you, ENC, the newsroom, Junior. There's a viewer there, Business Day. And, oh.
Too short.
Hey, and then you short here. It will be you after Usam, and then it will be you. Okay, let's go.
News 24. My first question is, I'm going to ask, to what extent did the ANC discuss the Jacob Zuma factor, as well as other parties that crept up, just how the political landscape has changed, and also the fact that the ANC is not necessarily a party that knows how to come back. We've seen the party lose power and struggle to get back in control. In metros, it happened in Western Cape. Now with all the provinces that were lost and other regions, how is the ANC going to tackle that, its history in terms of bringing back support? And also, should the ANC discuss its taking for granted areas that are historically strongholds, and to what extent? Thank you.
It's Queen and Maswabi from Daily Maverick. I know the DSG did speak about rebuilding Gauteng and KZN rather, but obviously Gauteng, the ANC's support did decline as well. I just wanted to get you to elaborate more on how you're going to rebuild. Will we see any redeployments of some of your members to these provinces to try to rebuild? What can we expect?
Junior from Newsroom Africa. DSG, you say that there's a general understanding of the fact that this electoral outcome was a setback for the ANC. Is there a general understanding when it comes to the GNU, the constitution of the GNU? Because we've heard a lot of reports saying there are certain sections of the NEC that do not support this, all of that. Has that been discussed? And secondly, you spoke about in this GNU needing to hold individuals accountable. Does this then include, how do I phrase this? Does this include holding accountable those, okay, let me put it this way. The new Minister of Public Works, Dean McPherson, has been reporting that there is a building, Telkom building, that was bought 8 years ago by the former minister, which was Uchula Singase at the time. So do you also encourage the holding accountable of individuals who erred in one way or the other in the previous administration by those that have taken over in the 7th administration? Thank you.
We're covered, okay. Yes, ENC at the back.
Thank you. I'm going to from ENCA. DSG, were you expecting these results, given that you've been on a gradual decline from 2016, losing some of the key metros? 2019, just under 60% for the first time. Is it something that maybe you were expecting the decline itself? And are you hopeful that you'll resurge from this decline, given that you've been on this gradual decline? And the MK party factor, is that something that's been discussed, and how to deal with the impact of the MK party itself, and how to deal with it going forward?
Thank you.
Okay, my question to the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, one, will there be any repercussions for those who fail to garner the votes in their respective provinces? I'm using Tunisania's province as an example. You go to Italy.
Your home?
Yes, my home province. You were totally obliterated in Italy. You go to Mpundo district, second biggest voting district, you only won 2 wards in Mkambatini. All other local municipalities were obliterated. You go to Mbuso Kubeka, there's basically no organization. You go to Musadlaga, there's basically no organization there as well in the Mhlathuze municipality. What are the repercussions for that particular province? 2, Northern Cape, you are obliterated in Uppington, colored vote. 3, Mpumalanga, Mkondo, those areas also MK8 to your base. What do you do to provinces that basically failed to garner those particular votes that you usually had in yesteryear? Lastly, on the issue of Jacob Zuma, in the report that was presented by yourself and Mdumiseni Ndudi, you spoke about the issue of the former president having been there and your decline having started during his tenure in 2016 going up till to date. What is your recovery plan to gain some of those votes that have been now allocated to Jacob Zuma because of the report that you got in 2009 when your votes in KwaZulu-Natal surged from 1.4 million to about 2.6 million in the era of Jacob Zuma? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Senjeko. I'm with the Sometime yesterday, the Secretary General said that you came from a disastrous, terrible and horrible election campaign. What was that? What was the disaster about your election campaign or the election campaign plan? And secondly, I think around over 40 million South Africans are eligible to vote. 16 million of them didn't vote this time around. We are told again by the IEC that 16.2 million voted. In fact, that number had dropped as compared to the 2019 election. Have you done a bit of an analysis in terms of what has discouraged South Africans from voting? Is it because maybe this democratic enterprise is not really working for them? Have you done that? And maybe lastly, the ANC has been on a gradual decline for some time, since around 2009, it has now, I would say, lost power, got around 40%. If we may to hypothesize for now, for a moment, DSG, and say, what kind of organization do people like Godimbe, young as they are, what kind of organization are they going to inherit? Are they going to inherit? Will they be happy to inherit a caucus-like organization?
And we've already inherited. It's similar.
Yes, sir.
My name is Shannon Merrick from Kasi Broadcasting Africa. It is a woman's month. They say you strike a woman, you strike a rock. What I want to ask Mama Action, who is in charge of Luthuli House? Is it Mama Action as a female or Madam Helen Zeller? Because we don't know now who has more power as a woman. Secondly, 2027, the SG yesterday did talk about 2027 is not here yet. But I'm asking this with what's happening in America. There's a female running for president, a black female. Are we likely to see a female contesting for president of the ANC 2027 and for the country 2030? Thank you.
Hey, you guys. DSG.
Thank you very much. Do you want to start?
No. Thanks, DSG. Thanks, Comrade Zugo, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to take many questions. I will leave the difficult questions to the DSG. I think the first question that I want to comment on is from Siamtand. I think that was the first question. I understand that there is a point that has been made on several occasions that the ANC doesn't know how to come back. And that statement is predicated on the assumption that the ANC doesn't learn. And even today, we have not acquired certain lessons that must help us to come back. We are still in the meeting of the National Executive Committee. My own view and my own sense is that we all have understood that for the first time, the ANC is less than 50%. And it's a totally new situation. And it requires that we make certain changes in terms of how we conduct our own business as a party. One of those is that for over a period of time, there has been a steady decline of activism in the movement. Where, yes, we've got structures, we've got leadership, but there is less activism, which connects these structures with the population on the ground. So the NEC is discussing that issue. What are we going to do to bring back that culture of activism? Because the disconnection with the party begins with the disconnection between the local structures as well as the population on the ground. The other issue, of course, is that we went to these elections, and that is probably one before the last question I want to answer. The environment was very difficult, very hostile to the ANC as a governing party in many ways. One of the challenges, as you will all remember, was that we began the campaign at the time when load shedding was also at its peak. And the mood in the country towards the ANC and the ANC-led government was quite negative, very difficult to campaign on. We made several interventions on the campaign, including the reviewal of our 30 years of liberation and many other interventions in order to ensure that we intervene to inform the national conversation. Of course, it was until very late where the load shedding issue became almost a thing of the past. But I think by the time we went to the elections, many other things that were outstanding, your challenges of water provision on the ground, the state of governance on some of our municipalities were impacting very negatively on the standing of the African National Congress and its capacity to convey credible messages to the population. That we have a manifesto, we will implement it, and please believe us. Because people were looking at what we are saying against what is happening at the moment on the ground. So those are some of the things that I think were very difficult as we went to that campaign. The last point I just want to comment on Comrade Zugo and Comrade DSG. It's about the GNU. The GNU, and it's not true that there are comrades who didn't support the GNU. It's not true. Obviously, when a discussion takes place in an organization, we are not homogeneous. We come from different homes and from different directions. It is perfectly expected that when we walk into a meeting, we walk with different views. But the fact of the matter is that when we emerge from that National Executive Committee, and I think up to date, there was a consensus that this was the best way to proceed as a movement and as a country. So I've heard on many platforms, including where I'm deployed now in Parliament, that what are you going to do because there are people within your own organization who do not agree with the position taken by the movement. I've not had that experience, Comrade DSG, that there are comrades who are unhappy and who are doing something because of that unhappiness about the position of the ANC on the GNU. I think we've embraced the GNU and we're leading it. And of course, we understand that the GNU is going to remain a very contested terrain. It's not surprising the behavior of Helen Zille, for instance. All that she does and what she says, this is going to be a contested terrain. We said this right from the onset when we were arguing that it's the ANC that has invited everybody into the GNU, including the Democratic Alliance. So at times it sounds arrogant when we say it's an ANC-led GNU. But practically and in theory, that's what it meant. Because we conceptualized this idea, we sold it out to parties, each one of them agreed and assented to the document on the statement of intent. What we have accepted as the ANC is going to be a contested terrain. The opposition is not going to, including those who are in the GNU, because everybody wants to set the agenda for this country to prepare for 2026 and for 2029. Thanks, DSG.
Thank you very much, Sompisi. Thanks, Comrade Zugo. Yeah, I think the issue of the JZ factor, we have all considered that what has happened is that there was a new player in the game in the form of MKP, and the player has actually taken from even our own support base. And how it has also been projected requires the ANC not to just take it simply and say people walked away from the ANC. We have to have a better understanding the character of the province where there's dominance of the votes coming from there. Secondly, we have to also appreciate the fact that we had different messages and messages that also might have even misled the voter of an ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa and the leadership of Mr. Zuma trying to sort out the African National Congress. And as we speak now, there is also an effort on our side to go back and have a better understanding, and hence one of the things that I'm raising about a project that was manipulated to garner votes under the guise of ensuring that you have the support so that you come and sort out the ANC. Secondly, the issues about how we're going to rebuild KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. We are in the first NEC. Deliberations are going on. We will put together programs, and the immediate people that will have to get that report about how we're going to rebuild and repurpose ourselves and be located amongst the masses of our people in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and everywhere in the country, will go to our structures. It will start first with the issues around the membership of the African National Congress, political education, conscientization of members so that then they are capable to lead in the communities where they live. And of importance also, ensuring that we build an organization that attracts activists. Activists will remain rooted in the communities, be responsive in terms of dealing with issues, and most importantly, ensure that those that lead or serve the African National Congress are capable to provide the proper response, but also provide solutions and take our people along as and when there are challenges. Delayed interventions have also been seen to be very suspicious by our constituencies. Your Nasispani, your transformer programs and stuff, the voters will actually say, why now? Why on the 11th hour? And part of what we now have to do is to continue with that work, and I'm sure you have seen Gauteng is continuing with that kind of work post the elections under the leadership of the chairperson of the African National Congress. So it's one of the lessons we have learned. Whether there's a need to intervene even when it is 4 years and 9 months before the next elections. So you need a responsive government, but we must also sort out our own systems of governance and service delivery across the 3 spheres of government. Because what Gauteng has done is not necessarily their mandate, but they intervened. So we don't now need interventions. We need solutions that incorporate everybody and ensure that those interventions are sustained. So the voter was also a bit suspicious. What's going to happen after this? You people yourselves, members of the media, were saying from the 30th there will be load shedding. But I've not seen a headline now that comes where they say, I withdraw my comments and my influence to the voter that before the results are announced, load shedding will be back. You didn't do that. So you are partly to blame because you misled the voter. And thanks that we remain true to our commitment. It's still happening. It must be sorted out, and work that Comrade Sputla is doing, working together with our provinces and our municipalities, must be sustained, as I'm saying, for the period of 5 years, and not only during the time when the date of elections has been set. Some PC has responded on the issue of the understanding. Discussions in any meeting are not actually monolithic. Everybody raises his or her issues. Once a process of engagement is concluded, there's a view that prevails of the organization. Even today, there is that appreciation, and we all know that an arrangement of this nature is very fluid. It can be exploited for the good. It can be exploited to undermine the positive intentions. We as the ANC are duty-bound to nurture this. We can't be as reckless as Mrs. Zille. We can't be reckless because it is us who invited people. She was a guest, and she remains a guest of the ANC. And if she has any discomfort, she is bound to actually express it, and it is within her right, but not to undermine the collective that is represented in Parliament, majority of political parties that are represented in Parliament, because all of them have got a mandate. And remember, I was with some of you there at the Rock. We all said we embrace the will of the people. And we're working through that will of us having 40% to grow our influence. And we really hope that you'll have an appreciation that the NC has been able to influence more than 9 political parties to work together with us to protect the hard-won gains of our democracy and to shape the way forward. And hence also, we have put the issue of the national dialogue so that we take all South Africans along. The issues about individuals who have erred previously and stuff, yes, that's why we have put the issue of consequence management and accountability, but will not be going on in witch hunt. Government must have its own capacity of oversight, monitoring and evaluation, and we will not want to play the man. Remember the president's speech in Parliament. We're not playing the man, we're playing the ball. Whatever that has happened, that has to be sorted out and be fixed rather than going on a witch hunt. We never go to battle and expect that we're going to come back having lost. It was disappointing. It was very, very unfortunate. But because we have a responsibility, we had to keep our heads high and ensure that we don't disappoint the 6 million that voted for us. Because we can't cry and even tear ourselves apart when there is a significant number of voters that have actually voted for us. So we never expected this decline. That's why we're looking at it even going forward, not only ending in this NEC meeting. We have put recommendations to this NEC about us having a better understanding of the South African electorate. We must look at the South African electorate according to regions, the provinces, but according to demographics, but also according to the different sectors of our society. Women remain consistent as voters. We need to look at the youth voter apathy. We must deal with that. We need to look at the urban vote and have an appreciation. So all those things are now a recommendation that we have put there in the National Executive Committee. What is also quite interesting about our laws is that whilst there's an assumption that the numbers that this other party has got, the JZ party, that it has are numbers that come from the ANC. They've eaten everywhere. So you have to have that appreciation. There is something that we need to internalize and say, what was the message that made Abantu base Denver hostel to shift their vote from the party that historically they voted for, which is not the ANC, and vote for the MK party? Those are the things that we need to look at. Is regionalism a reality? Is tribalism a factor? Is the issue of culture also creeping into the political dynamics of this country? We all have to look at those issues and be able to look at them differently. Fortunately, I have my own relatives in KwaZulu-Natal that in the discourse you have an appreciation of how did they end up being where they are, because of all these factors that I'm raising that we need to look at. Any repercussions on who are not even near discussions of Wutik. Where we are now is what happened, and have once we have that understanding, we then go out and engage with everybody, self-correct where there has to be self-correction, strengthen, but ensure that you do not first start by saying Mabahambe. We're not a Mabahambe party. What we are here about is about regaining what Mdu has said. It's the first time we have this. How do we reposition ourselves? But also, what kind of different messages we're taking to different communities? Because the voter is not just excited about 1912. The voter in each and every corner has got his or her own different issues that he or she is interested in. What you've raised, Samkelo, I appreciate that you studied the results very well. You give us the space. We will come back about the issues of Northern Cape and stuff. Hence, we're saying we are going to, this is the beginning of the work that we're putting before the NEC to say, allow us to go and work with the Department of Organizational Building, with political education, together with elections, as well as the structures of the ANC, to have a full appreciation of the developments. I mean, the Western Cape, you have seen the emergence of the Patriotic Alliance, Al-Jama, your experience of Uppington and so forth. Hence, I'm saying there are many factors that are beginning to characterize the voting patterns. Culture, a location of the voter, the issues around Shangana Zulu, the issues about so many other things. Yes, the National Colored Congress. Have you ever thought that we'll have a National Colored Congress 30 years down the line? So it is something, especially for the political reporters, you journalists, that you also have to dive deeper like we are doing to understand these elections. They can't be evaluated over. We're now only 24 hours since we started. We've not even concluded. Discussions are ensuing. We are going to be walking this journey, with a very thin comb and have an appreciation. But of importance, we don't undermine the 6 million that voted for us. I take full exception to say we're presiding over a carcass, a party that receives 40%, unless the intentions were to actually bury us. And that's part of what we must sort out. 6 million of those who voted, in which is the majority, voted for the ANC. Of course, there were those who went out, and some even in the media, who wanted to see the unveiling of the tombstone of the ANC. It can't happen, and as you say, what are they going to inherit? He's a member of the NEC. It's not about what he's going to inherit. He's part of it. He's a member of the NEC. I'm the eldest amongst them here. But I still have a chance of providing leadership and support. And what we are sitting and deliberating on there is that it will not become a carcass in our lifetime. It won't. And what are we going to do? Renewal must be real, must not be subjective. Recruitment of members must go with political education. Making the ANC to be dynamic must be our primary mission. The ANC that gets preoccupied with elections of internal structures must be something of the past. The ANC, that a branch of the ANC that is functional, must be measured not on the basis of 100 members, but it must be on the basis of its program in the community, with those members of the ANC working in those communities, so that it's not just a door-to-door for the first time in 5 years. The call for an activist-led ANC is the right call now, so that then we don't only go and do door-to-door 3 months before the elections. Who is in charge of Luthuli House? Zille is not in charge of Luthuli House. He can't, she can't. Luthuli House is the house of the African National Congress. Who leads the GNU? The GNU is led by the NC. The NC having invited everybody. We refused to be put together with the DA. We were conscious of the fact that we have a bigger constituency that is represented through Parliament. And that's what we would be working on. What you see in the United States, just give us the space, focus on what you see in South Africa. I wish you could see what is happening in Palestine as well. So that's what we're busy with now, to sort out our national interests first. We are not even near any discussion in the NC about who's going to lead. We have a Ramaphosa who has been voted for by branches of the ANC, who was our face going into the elections. We have learned the hard way. Intentions of wanting to deal with people based on the outcomes of elections has never helped the ANC, but it has actually made the ANC to be much more weaker. Kasi, whatever was not there that time. So maybe that's why there's an excitement that we are going to see what other people saw over the past terms of presidents. It's not going to happen, not with us. We have learned the hard way.